Hello, everyone. This is SIG Instrumentation. Today is October 15th, and we have one topic on the agenda from David. Take it away.
Okay, so there isn't necessarily any action items here, but I just wanted to raise it early, and because I suspect that this will come back to haunt us someday, which is that we have our own set of standards for how people should name labels and such. The most important ones are things like container, pod, node, that sort of thing. Well, OpenTelemetry, which I've started to become involved in a little bit, has also added their own standards for how to name things. And in particular, they've prefixed all of the Kubernetes specific names like pod and container with Kates dot. So they use Kates.pod instead of just pod. The reason why this matters is because if you want to do any sort of trace metric correlation, or even now that we have structured logging, trace log correlation, that's much easier to do when they are using the same keys. Thankfully, it's actually pretty easy to rename labels in both systems. Like Prometheus obviously has label mappings, and OpenTelemetry also has the ability to rename labels. So I think this can be pretty easily mitigated. But I just wanted to raise it as like there are now two standards that differ in how to refer to things.
So just as a point of clarification, I'm a little bit confused. Like, what is actually being prefixed with Kates_pod?
So for example, in a Prometheus metric for container CPU usage, we use the label container pod, and we use the label pod, right? If you were to trace something that referred to a container or a pod, today that would come out as with labels. They're not exactly the same, but they're essentially labels, Kates.pod and Kates.container.
Where does the prefix come from?
It's part of their semantic conventions. So they say that when you refer to containers and pods, you should use the semantic conventions.
Any reason, and they can't stick to our naming, or?
It seems a bit wild to me that this will ever work, that there are globally consistent label namings. I feel like there should be like another layer on top of this to do correlations.
Well, it's pretty much the same as Prometheus, right? Like people sometimes refer to things with different labels and have to do label remappings. So it's not the end of the world, right? It's just a call out that I guess, especially in relation to the tracing kept, maybe we might want to do something, because if we're instrumenting things within Kubernetes, maybe we want to choose between the default, if I understand it, is to use the OpenTelemetry one. So maybe we want to choose the having traces from Kubernetes components tagged in ways that match the rest of our guidelines.
Wait, are dots even permissible in Prometheus label names? I can't remember.
I don't.
They're not.
Label names, no.
So
I believe if you're using Prometheus, I think OpenTelemetry will end up substituting underscores for your dots. But I would need to confirm that.
That would make sense. That's the typical thing that we do when we convert to Prometheus labels.
That's weird though, right? Like the default behavior is inconsistent with Prometheus labeling. Like that's a little sketch.
Yeah, I find that weird as well.
I can also look into that and report back if that's helpful on why they decided dots instead of underscores. But I guess that's a separate topic.
Yeah, so I think this was like a namespacing topic in OpenTelemetry. I think this topic has come up in various forms in various projects. I guess it's just a little bit unfortunate that like Prometheus being one of the first or one of the only open standards that are being supported by OpenTelemetry, that something was chosen that's not Prometheus compatible.
So this, I was really happy that you put this on the agenda, because there's another aspect to this that I wanted to ask about, which is basically, I have talked to some people about this offline, but I kind of want to start passing context to for labels, similar to like the way Open Census does this. So this is relevant to this particular conversation because this has to do with the way that we're passing along metadata, right, for instrumentation. And currently we have, well, I mean, we just do lots of things depending on where the metrics are in the code base, but generally this comes in the form of like, you have a function and it takes like n number of arguments, and you basically have to plumb all of these arguments all the way through, which can result in errors because people sometimes swap arguments. And it is really ugly to pass it all the way through. If we just plumb context and we did this, it would make a lot of things a lot nicer. And then we would also have consistent access to this metadata for stuff like this, right? So this is a different aspect of the metadata stuff that, I mean, is anyone object to like passing context?
I guess my question would be, other than attributes of objects, what are you thinking about storing in there? Because it seems like most of the time right now we're using, or maybe I'm misunderstanding when this would be really useful.
Requests. Like, for instance, request cycles have a number, like you have many, many layers, like filters, and you just accumulate all of these values. You can either accumulate them in the context, or you can like literally take them and then pass it to the next function until you get to the point where the metric is actually recorded. So then basically you're just like accumulating all of this craft until you're ready to record that metric, and that metric ends up having like 12 arguments, and you know, like it can be kind of a mess, right? Like, and we've had instances where basically we're passing along all of these arguments, but then at the very end we do some sort of transformation to make like a resource, canonical resource, or a verb, a canonical verb, or whatever. And then basically, like, if you don't do that transformation at the very end or whatever, then basically you end up with multiple metrics having different things. And this has happened to us several times, right? So like, if we were to just like funnel this into one place and have like, this is the metadata for this request, you can record whatever you would like, right? Like, if you have some tracing thing, use this thing, right? Like everybody gets the same data, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just cleaner.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. Other things that I can imagine that I've seen in other projects, that it wasn't necessarily done through context, but it's totally doable through context, is like wrapping of the metrics registry to say like everything that I pass down here, like all the metrics get this label or get this prefix, or stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, we can use the Prometheus query with, I mean, it's basically the same thing, except the problem is like, I don't want this isolated to the metrics, because now we're talking about like several intersecting, yeah.
I was just saying that that's the parallel to what exists in metrics already, but like wrapped in context essentially. And this could help us also with plumbing through the metrics registry like we wanted to, right? Instead of having the global one. Hopefully that should, like, I would hope that somehow like binding calls to metrics to the context would be possible. And then we could have this refactoring, hopefully, like as a side effect, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, this is completely backwards compatible, right? We just add a new thing to our component-based code to take the context, and we just like do context set to do for now, and then we just start implementing it. Yeah, so it should be super easy. Okay, then if no one has any objections, then I don't even think this requires a cap. We can just probably just add contacts because it's plumbing context, right? Like this is just like.
But we're kind of proposing to put a value into this context, no?
We can. We don't have to, right? Like you can support. Like first, you expose two APIs. One which doesn't take the context and the label values the regular way, and also it takes the context. Initially, that context will be a context set to do and won't do anything until component owners implement passing label values, right?
Okay.
So like
you're not even suggesting yet to put anything into the context, just literally adding plumbing of context. Like I don't think you need a cap for that.
Yeah,
just do it.
Exactly.
I think when we get to the point of saying we want to embed something into this context, then probably we should have a cap for that.
Okay. Yeah, sounds great. Awesome. I will add this. Okay, yeah, that was it for me.
David, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss on your point, or were you gonna circle back with OpenTelemetry and see?
I will circle back. There also aren't any action items for this. It's more just like a heads up that there are different standards out there.
Yeah.
If you have any
as I said, I assume, like not that it's necessarily wishful thinking, but like I assume there's always going to be inconsistencies, no matter what standards are agreed upon, even in Kubernetes, right? Like there are other projects that integrate with Kubernetes and expose metrics that don't necessarily follow the scheme. So I think we all pretty much agree.
So, but OpenTelemetry is nascent, right? Like it's new and their standards are changing. Prometheus is like kind of a de facto standard now. So like, would it be possible for us to like ask OpenTelemetry if this is like set in stone, if this is amenable to change, or like, because like, if it's colliding already, that's like kind of not the most positive sign.
Yes, I would say they're not GA yet, and they're making a whole slew of breaking changes right now. So if there ever was a time, it would be now. I don't know. I think it seems like they've agreed to do namespacing, but I don't know how much thought they put into the namespacing character, and if that was, like, I don't know necessarily why they did that. So I can at least look into that point.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. Like if somehow we could find something that would be somewhat compatible with Prometheus, like I don't know, just off the top of my head, like double underscore or something to to signify there's a new namespace, there's a namespace ending here or something. I don't know. It's just a thought, right? Like it would be neat if we could provide our input here. I guess they're. I would hope that they're happy for our input as well. Okay, our other topic is Lily, kube state metrics.
Yes. Thanks, Han, for the reminder. We just released another pre-release candidate, essentially, after some bug reports, but we're going towards V2 quite nicely. We're working with SIG scalability soon to do some scale testing, and yeah, we just want people to use it more to get more bug reports, essentially. But yeah, that's all.
I will mention
Very
that
cool.
in the community update today. Awesome.
Nice, thanks.
Nice.
Okay. Is that it for the agenda?
That's it for the agenda.
Do we do triage after this, or how does that work now?
Triage is next week.
Yep.
How has that been?
Pretty good.
Yeah, there's not too much to do every week, so it's usually just 1 or 2 PRs, 1 or 2 issues, and we get them doled out.
Yeah, but it's good to have this scheduled because it makes us actually do it, which is definitely helpful. There have been a couple of things where nobody had replied until the point where we did triage, so that's good. Okay, looks like we don't have anything else for the agenda. Is there anything else that anybody would like to talk about? Otherwise, I guess we can give everyone 10 minutes of their time back. Going once, going twice. All right, then have a wonderful local time and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.